I'm Marc Elliot. I'm an inspirational speaker. I beat Tourette syndrome, and I was an instructor in NXIVM. Hey everybody, it is Marc Elliot here, and welcome back to the interview series called We Beat Tourette Syndrome, using tools from NXIVM. I hope you enjoyed the first one with Nick Leder, and we are now on to Alex Hall. I've known Alex for about 8 years. I think that's when he started the Tourette's Project. And to this day, I have stayed in close contact with Alex. He is a dear friend of mine. And Alex has a special place in the Tourette's Project because after we helped him, he had severe Tourette's. He came to Albany, and then he went back home. He lived about 2.5 hours north of Albany. And myself and another gentleman named Alessandro Molitare, who eventually became the filmmaker and director of the documentary called My Tourette's, we went up to go visit Alex, and here I thought we were just going to document, Alex's progress. As his Tourette's was down about 70 or 80% after he came to Albany. But it was Alessandro who had a much bigger vision and better imagination than I did. And it was on that trip is actually the beginning of us documenting the footage that eventually became the movie My Tourette's. And that started about 8 years ago. Now, in this interview, this is the first part of a few parts, and I ask Alex some just basic questions about, who is he, what was his Tourette's like, and really, what was the hardest part for him living with Tourette's? It was very interesting for me to meet Alex, as Alex was the first person that I had met that had worse Tourette's than I did when I was living with it. And it was a very surreal experience, for me, because when you're living with Tourette's, you don't know what it's like for other people to look at you and experience you while you're ticking. And so when I met Alex, it was one of the first times I had a glimpse of what it was like for people who were in my life experiencing my Tourette's. So Alex and I, really hit it off when we met, and I think we really connected a lot because of how similar our tics were and the struggle that we had. Before we get to the interview, I just want to show you a very short clip from the movie My Tourette's, which again is now on YouTube for free, that anyone can see it in the world. And in this clip, you can really see just how severe Alex's Tourette's was.
What we're doing is kind of like that. We have a passion for it. We educate people. We work. We work with wildlife and we save it. We rehabilitate animals back to sufficient health, so we can release them back into the environment.
As you can see, Alex's tics were horrible, and again, we had very similar tics in that I had the severe head shaking. And so when I met him and we began to talk and realized that he was a good candidate for the Tourette's Project, I felt so happy that we could help him, as he was in, not only was it just a difficult disorder, he was in so much pain. And of course, as you know how this story goes, Alex went on to live an unimaginable life after coming to NXIVM, and we were able to help him. So please enjoy the interview.
My name is Alex Hall, aka Wolfman. I'm from originally Carmel, New York, moved up after 9/11 to a place called Wilmington, where I started a wildlife refuge. When was I diagnosed? I think I was around 7. When my Tourette's was at its worst, my tics were, I don't want to say debilitating, but it was to a point where I had to stop everything that I was doing. And what were they like? Swinging my head back, hitting every part of me until it felt right. And smacking my head against the wall, pounding on my chest to where doctors and nurses thought I was going to stop my heart. What treatments did I do? when I was younger, medication, Adderall, other medications that really just destroyed my energy. That's it. Pretty much when I was that age, back in like the later 90s, it was all just medication. Doctors thought that medication would be the best option for what I was going through. So the hardest part of living with Tourette's is boy, where do I start with that? Long list or the short list? The hardest part of living with Tourette's is being noticed a lot. And I remember a lot of people in the Tourette's program were saying like, oh, you know, when you tick, it's really about you want to be noticed. I was like, man, I don't want to be noticed. And like the worst thing about it is I was kicked out of places. People were taking videos of me. I felt ashamed. I felt humiliated. And it was exhausting. When I was trying to hold it in, it was exhausting. And when I ticked all day, it was exhausting, so I couldn't win. The hardest part whether it was emotional or physical, I think it was both. You couldn't have one without the other, and I was so OCD about it. I had to get it just right, and if someone interrupted, I had to do it again and again and again and again. And they were pretty hard ticks. You're talking about like full body, chest hitting, head swinging, neck straining, nose breaking ticks. And if someone's looking at me, now I'm like, geez, man, I think I'm a psycho. And now I'm trying to stop the ticks, and now I'm sweating, my heart's racing. Obviously, some parts of my body hurt. And you asked what was the hardest emotionally or physically, it's both.
As you can see from the interview, Alex is living an unimaginable life now. I think it's important to note that after we helped him beat Tourette syndrome, he ended up completing an Ironman. An Ironman. I think it's a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike ride, and then a full marathon. Alex Hall couldn't even ride a bike. His Tourette's was so bad before. And then, within a matter of a couple months, I think, or it was within a year, he completed an Ironman. So in the next part of this interview, Alex, I asked him about, how did he learn about the Tourette's Project, and why did he want to do it? What was it about it that was different, that he wanted to go on that journey? So thank you for joining on this one, and we'll see you on the next one.